Hi, I'm Julie Thompson. I'm the guest host for Pembroke Today. And Pembroke Today is the brainchild of Pembroke's interim town manager, Ed Thorne. Welcome, Ed.
Jules, always a pleasure, and look forward to explaining this year's annual town meeting warrant.
Right, so town meeting for Pembroke is on Thursday, the 14th of, Tuesday, the 14th of May at 7 o'clock at the Pembroke High School auditorium.
That's correct.
There's a special town meeting and there's a town meeting.
Right.
So before we just get into that, I have one question. After reading through the warrant, there's a bit of change of how the types of articles appear on the warrant. Could you just briefly explain that?
Yeah, what we've done now is we've broken out some of the articles, separate articles that normally would be in other articles or a combination of both. Because we have a capital plan, and we'll explain that when we get to that. We've taken out the trust funds, made them a separate article because we have more of those now. And so, and we've added appendices to the rear of the warrant so that, we don't have, so that the public, be able to follow that along.
It's actually easier to understand each article.
Yeah, we try to make it easier every year.
Yes, it's much easier. Okay, so let's start with the special town meeting,
Right.
which has to go before the regular town meeting. There's only 4 articles on that. So the first one, Article 1, you want to explain what that is? It's wage and salaries.
Those are usually transfers that we make year end to cover any deficits in some departments.
Yep.
We're not really sure those numbers are going to be true. We're hoping to pare those down.
Okay.
But that's a normal occurrence that we have
Every year.
Year end.
Yep, okay, perfect. Article 2 is about transferring some for unpaid bills.
Yeah, it was a bill that fell through the crack 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I think it was determined that it was supposed to have been under emergency management. It came under the police budget, whatever.
Okay.
And so,
A general ledger item.
yeah, so
Okay.
the auditors, make us pay for it under the unpaid bill
Okay.
article.
Okay. Article 3 is about collective bargaining agreements.
In case we settle a union contract between now and the town meeting,
Yeah.
that's a catch-all article to make sure that if we do cut a deal with a particular union,
Yeah.
that it can be on the warrant so that it could be appropriated and approved by town meeting.
Perfect. So that just gives us permission to do so.
Right.
Okay. And then Article 4 is raising and appropriating or transferring funds to repair town buildings.
And we've got a problem with the police department right now.
Yeah.
With some of the plumbing.
Yep.
And this would allow us to have the money available. If we had it at the annual, the money wouldn't be available until July 1st.
Okay. And this is $38,000 that's listed right on here.
That's right.
So people know how much it is. Okay. And then once those articles are done, we close out the special town meeting.
That's correct. Normally what the moderator does, he opens the town meeting,
Yep.
the annual town meeting.
Right.
We might do 1 or 2 articles.
Yep.
And then we will adjourn the annual town meeting,
Yep.
go into the special, go through the articles in the special, and then reconvene the annual town meeting.
Okay. Which is what we will do.
That's right.
Okay, so let's go to there's 37 articles in the regular town meeting. Quite a few have to do with
With zoning.
zoning. A lot of them have to do with zoning.
Right.
So let's go just right from the beginning. Article 1, town reports.
That's something that's left over from the Pilgrims.
Right. It just says that we'll do reports each year.
We'll do reports, and we do reports
And we
every
do
year,
reports each year. So it's really not asking for anything.
Right.
Okay, Article 2, wage and classification plan, and that's where you have to go look at the appendices.
Yeah, and those are the pay plans for our non-union,
Yep.
full-time employees, non-union, part-time employees.
Yep.
And then we have we have a category for scheduled workers who are paid yearly. People like the conservation agent,
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
He's a typical
It's all on there.
example of somebody that's in that Schedule C.
Okay. Article 3 is the operating budget, and basically it presents the fiscal 2020 budget as prepared by the town manager.
The moderator will read this budget by department and by category. Usually it's, police department, wages and salaries, general expenses. And in the past, Also, a third item would be capital outlay.
Right.
But we'll cover that when we get to the capital budget article itself. This year's budget, the general fund budget is around 65 million. That includes some 34 million for the schools. That includes increases to health insurance, property insurance, a 2% increase for certain unions that have another year left in their contract.
And all of this are on the appendices.
That's
You can
correct.
see what currently is and what is projected.
Right, so
or
we've got
proposed.
around a $65 million budget, and you know, that'll include all of the departments
Yep.
except for water and solid waste, and we'll get to that.
And not capital, because capital
And
is
not
separate.
capital, you're right.
Whereas before, capital was included in there.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. Article 4, Water Enterprise Operation Budget.
Yeah, several years ago, the town meeting authorized the creation of 2 enterprise funds. And an enterprise fund is a department where they receive their own sources of revenue.
Right, and it's just for them.
It's just for them.
And it makes sense.
And if they have a surplus, it stays with them.
Right.
It doesn't get
Right.
transferred to any other
Yep.
department. So the water department is one of those enterprise funds.
Yep. And then the solid waste?
Solid waste is another. Now, solid waste makes up the recycling center.
Yep,
The town's contracts with the curbside
Pickup,
trash
yep.
and recycling pickup. It also includes the contract for taking the garbage to a landfill.
yep,
So we pay about $59 a ton
Yeah,
for
for that.
garbage
Yep.
that goes to the landfill. Right now, I believe it goes to Taunton.
Yep.
And then another contract, a third contract, is to take our recyclables
Yeah.
to Waste Management in Avon.
Right.
And that price fluctuates.
All the time.
It's gone
Right.
from
Right.
us being paid,
to us paying them, yeah.
us paying them.
whole recycling-
Almost $80 to $90 a ton.
Right. So both the water enterprise and the solid waste enterprise, they fund themselves, they budget themselves.
You know, the water department supervisor prepares that budget,
Yep.
and I prepare the solid waste budget. Both of them are around $2 million.
Okay, perfect. Article 6, the capital budget.
This is new.
Yep,
First of all, we've always had a capital improvements plan, which means these are items that we purchase that usually are in excess of $5,000 or $10,000.
Yep.
And that have a life expectancy usually over 5 years.
Yep.
So you would take into consideration some of the large trucks at the DPW, computers, you know, police cruisers.
things that just have to be on a cycle of being replaced.
And
Yeah.
normally we actually put them in, you know, in the operating budget. But because we're using a different pot of money going forward to pay for these things, we decided to put them in the first year of a 5-year capital plan that we had presented and put together for us. And so that first year of that 5-year plan
Is here.
in that
is here,
article.
which is great.
And
So
I believe it's around $600,000
Okay.
is what we'll be spending for
capital.
capital improvements.
Okay. Is there a special a pot of money that has the 600 already in it? Do you have a capital fund that has it?
Yeah, right now, it is the proceeds of some property that was auctioned off by the treasure collector.
Okay.
And at that auction several months ago, it generated about $850,000. And so we're setting aside that $850,000 strictly for capital items.
Great.
So around 600 will go to
this,
the article
yep.
there, and then the remaining 200, whatever, 250 will go to a capital stabilization fund.
Perfect.
So that we'll have it stored for the future use.
Perfect. And how will that be funded in the future? If it was funded this year by the sale of property, how will it be funded for next year?
What we'd like to do, ideally, is to use what is known as free cash.
Okay.
Now, free cash isn't really free, but
Nothing's free.
excuse me, it's surplus revenue.
Okay.
It's money that is left over from the previous year. Either a lot of expenses for the departments were not met, so that there was a surplus in their expense accounts, or we actually generated more revenue in our accounts than we
Than we had
originally
predicted.
budgeted.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Article 7 is trust fund transfers.
We have really created several trust funds.
Yeah.
And I think you could read them aloud.
Yeah, they're the OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits.
Benefits, correct.
Separation of pay benefits, special injury leave fund, workers' comp insurance fund, capital stabilization fund, water stabilization fund, and just the plain old stabilization fund. And none of them ask, well, the highest one on here is $250,000, and that's from the sale of real estate.
That's correct.
Yep. So these trust funds are literally funds that are just for this specific thing.
Yeah, one of them that you mentioned was the separation pay.
Yep.
What happens when a person leaves the service of the town,
Yeah.
they're entitled to any unused vacation and in some cases sick leave.
Yep.
And we don't take that out of the employee's department.
Right.
So we have a separate trust fund set aside
Yep.
so that it doesn't impact that department that the employee is leaving
Okay.
or retiring from.
Okay.
And another fund you mentioned was workers' comp.
Yep.
We have become self-insured from a workers' compensation standpoint.
Okay.
So we're not shelling out a lot of money to a third-party insurer when we can pay for it out of
Yourself.
our own pocket.
Perfect. And everything is listed on here too, where that money is coming from. So if anybody has any questions, they can see that. Article 8 is the Community Preservation Fund allocations.
This is required by law. We have to allocate so many dollars to certain categories
Yep.
in the community preservation program.
And
I
they're
think you-
historic resources, community housing, open spaces, and community administrative expenses.
Right, those are the pots of money
Yep.
that we have to allocate. And so that projects that are being requested, by members of the public
Yep.
or departments, then they would go to those specific departments allocated,
To get the money.
from that CPC article.
Okay, perfect. Article 9 is your revolving fund limits. So this is just putting spending limits on revolving funds.
Right, as required by the Mass Municipal Modernization Act.
Right.
Those are items that, we have set aside for each department.
Yep. And this is just the maximum that they will be spent. The highest one on here is the Council of Aging is 110, and then there's some as little as 10,000, which is the DPW cemetery.
Yeah, the Council on Aging receives a pot of money from GATRA.
Yes.
And that is in place of the state assessment that we had in the past for the MBTA. And we weren't getting any services from the MBTA. So we successfully petitioned the Department of Revenue to
Give us some.
to have the
money.
GATRA
Yep.
that we use,
Yeah.
from the Council on Aging to be able to allocate that for
Perfect.
that department.
Okay, great. Article 10, amend town bylaws. Now, there's a lot of these amend town bylaws. There's 3 or 4 of them. So Article 10 is amend town bylaws for employee recruitment update. And this is just about how you actually post jobs.
Yeah, it's become obvious over the years that putting an ad in the newspaper
Waste of money.
is a waste of money. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, it can go anywhere from $400 to $1,000. And I surveyed the other towns on the South Shore,
Yeah.
and hardly anybody ever does it anymore. And we're not required to.
Right.
If you can advertise it on your town website or on
Through
the social media, whatever.
It gets out there. Word
it-
gets out.
It
Yep.
satisfies the
Okay.
requirement.
That's an easy one. Article 11, amend town bylaws, delete appointed role compensation. An appointed role for who?
In our town bylaws, there are references to the highway surveyor.
Oh.
And we hadn't had one for 30-something years.
There is no highway surveyor.
There is no highway surveyor, so
So this is just
we were able
housekeeping,
to, it's
cleaning
house
up.
cleaning.
Okay, cleaning up some wording. Amend town bylaws for deleting town administrator bylaw. This is Article 12.
Well, ever since the special act was
Yep, we're not going to
signed
have
by
a
the
town
governor in
administrator
December,
anymore. Yep.
we don't have a town administrator now.
So will this change anytime there's a word that says town administrator changes to town manager?
That's correct.
Okay, that's an easy one. Article 13, establish revolving fund for town clerk's fees.
Yep, this is something that was requested by Peg,
Yep.
and you know, it's new monies that she's able to collect and charge people for services of the town clerk.
And this is mostly for the online services which have come up, correct?
That's correct.
Online licensing, et cetera? Okay, so do we have any?
Which has proved to be very successful. So.
Yeah, that's great. So we're just voting that, yes, we agree with establishing this fund.
That's correct.
Okay, Article 14, land conveyance to Conservation Commission.
Yeah, they were, the treasure collector always ends up with a lot of parcels throughout the town that are not being used by anybody.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we'll approach abutters to see if they want to increase their lot size or whatever. A lot of times we want to preserve that as open space, so we'll give that, and in this case, we're conveying it to the Conservation Commission.
Okay, perfect.
And they're like 3 small parcels that
Right.
are located in the Furnace Colony area.
Okay, so that's an easy one. Article 15, Route 36 project easement.
Well, that project is going to be started pretty soon.
Yep.
And it's going to be similar to the Route 14 project
Yeah.
that went through the middle of town.
Yep.
And it's going to go from the center of town all the way down to the Halifax line,
Right.
to Route 27.
Yep, okay.
And so it'll be sidewalks on both sides, widening and all that. And this is something that we need in order to acquire the easements that are going to be necessary when we do the road project.
Okay. Article 16, amend classification and compensation bylaws for the library.
That's a request by the library trustees to increase the hours and the salary of the general reference librarian.
All right. Article 17, amend classification and conservation bylaws of the COA driver.
Right. The requested to increase the salaries of the van drivers.
Yep. Okay. Article 18, and none of these are huge money. And this doesn't go into operating budget because it's a change of the compensation laws?
Oh, it'll definitely go into it'll affect our operating budget, yes.
Okay, but this has to be voted on first?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Article 18, the zoning bylaw, community center redevelopment overlay district.
That was withdrawn by the town
Okay.
and the planning board.
Well, that was a long one, too.
The committee, the community center study committee is going to be receiving some monies in the capital plan to do some engineering work. And we expect that all that work will have a more definitive plan. And we expect that that particular article will be at the fall town meeting.
Okay, so we just didn't have enough information and things weren't
Right,
in
and
place
it was
enough
a
to do it.
consensus on all sides that
Which makes sense.
we weren't ready.
Don't present it till
and
you're ready.
we didn't want to have that. We didn't want to waste the ink,
Absolutely,
and
right.
we didn't want to waste any time at town
doing
meeting.
it, right. Okay. Article 19, zoning bylaw, age-restricted cluster development bylaw.
This is the developers and Pembroke Country Club's
Okay.
request to allow cluster housing development on the country club property.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Right now, where the country club is located, what is the zoning for housing right now?
It's residential A, which requires a 40,000 square foot minimum lot.
Okay, so what the town needs to approve or not approve is for the zoning for just the area of the country club to be changed to zoning.
That's
It's allowed
correct.
to be cluster developed.
What the country club and the developers are proposing is that approximately 60 acres of the 180 that the country club sits on
Yeah.
would be set aside for cluster over 55 housing.
And not all in one place, but 3 separate clusters, may I explain?
Excuse me. Actually, it's in two areas.
Okay, 2 separate clusters of housing.
One would be an area which is in and around the current clubhouse and event center that they have there. And the other area would be in the north section of the country club with an egress and ingress at Dwelly Street.
Okay, so those are the 2 places that these housing clusters would go. Other than that, the country club, I mean, the golf course as it would stay
Yeah,
approximately where it is?
pretty much the center of the parcel would remain
Remain
the
exactly the
18-hole
same,
golf.
okay. So if the town approves this, if people vote yes, we will change the zoning bylaw to allow cluster development just in this particular area, because that's all
Right.
it's asking for, then what? What happens then?
Well, then there's a purchase and sale agreement that the developer and the owner, have right now, and
Mm-hmm.
that would allow them to proceed with their project.
Okay?
And of course, they would have to go to the planning board
Yep.
and whatever
They'd
and
have
all
to go
that
through all the
kind of
things they'd
stuff.
have to. But that one thing about the housing has been covered now. If we approved it, then they can go ahead and build their
If it's
cluster
approved,
housing.
that's
Right.
correct.
If it is not approved, what happens?
If it's not approved, there's two things that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, the town has the right of first refusal because right now the country club receives a tax break for being open space recreation.
Right. So we
And
made that deal with them, right? That we'll get the right of first refusal if they're going to sell it.
Yeah,
Okay.
if it doesn't go through and actually we still have the right of first refusal
Anyway, right? Yeah.
But if the zoning bylaw goes through, then the town has to make a decision on that. But then that would allow the developer to do it. If the zoning bylaw doesn't go through, then the owner of the property then, has a decision to make.
Right.
Does the town buy it and create cluster housing? But if it doesn't pass
We already
at
said
town
we weren't,
meeting,
right, if we were not gonna do it,
that's a
right.
moot point. Then the town has a choice of buying the property
At the same price that
at
they're
the
being
same
offered
price.
right now, and they're being offered
4.36 million.
4.36 million. So we'd have to match that
We have to match it.
or over by $1. Yeah,
Well,
right?
just match
Yeah.
it. And then we also would have to agree to a management contract with the current owner
Yep.
to operate the golf course for at least 3 years
Mm-hmm.
and receive $75,000 from the current owner.
So we'd get $75,000 a year for 3 years, but we'd have a mortgage of,
$387,000 for 20 years.
that would be what it would cost us a year to
That's
pay
the
for
estimate right now.
4.3.75. Okay.
Right.
So financially, it wouldn't make sense.
And if the town chooses not to exercise the right of first refusal,
Yeah.
then the owner then would be allowed to do whatever they want to do.
So if they said, we simply can't do this, we're going to have to sell, they can sell their whole parcel of
They
land.
can sell the whole parcel.
And then it could be developed into regular housing.
Single family.
And how many houses would fit on all
Well,
those
they're
acres?
saying right now over 100.
So there'd be over 100, and those aren't going to be little houses, those will be big houses.
Well, there'll be houses on 40,000 square
Square
foot.
feet. Okay, so that's really, it all starts with whether or not the town approves the cluster housing.
That'll start everything.
That'll
rolling.
start everything. Okay, so that'll be, I'm sure, an interesting and lively debate. Article 20 is the zoning bylaw, amend non-residential frontage bylaw.
Yeah, now what we've got between Article 19 and 32, 19 deals with frontage, allowing in industrial districts. And a lot of these are just
These are just,
housekeeping
they're up, yeah, I read them all,
situations.
and they're just kind of updating to wording,
Yeah,
a lot of them.
20 and 21 deal with assisted living.
Yep.
Allowing them by special permit.
Right.
In certain areas. There's, in Article 22, there's a bunch of typo errors that
Mm-hmm.
are being, and I might add that all these were done in conjunction with the planning board and town council, kind of, doing an overall housekeeping of the zoning bylaws.
Which
So-
is great, because if you go through them, it's really, there's no major, huge changes in this, but it makes them more, their clarification is better, and this was something that probably hasn't been done in a long, long time.
Right. I mean, for instance, you go to Article 26, and it deals with extending the appeal to the ZBA, from 21 days to 30 days, things
Yeah,
like that.
So there's nothing earth-shaking, really, in any of these. I didn't think, just reading as a resident, I didn't think they were earth-shaking. Is there anything that you think will be up for debate, that there's going to be Any question about whether or not they pass?
No, there may be something about, Article 32 deals with use variances and, whether or not they're allowed in certain areas or whatever.
Yep.
Some people might think that this is tying the hands of the ZBA as opposed to the planning board. These are being proposed by the planning board.
Yeah.
But most of these are not going to, generate a whole lot of discussion.
Okay. So those really are all the, okay. So let's go on to Article, we only have a couple minutes left here. Town elections, Article 34, it just says what they are and who can run and where they're going to be held and
Right.
how long the positions are for. The CPC funded project proposals is Article 35.
That's correct, and the
Appropriating-
recommendations are
Yeah.
what you have there?
Yep, it just tells you they want to put some money into the Pembroke Historical Society for restoration. There's a couple recommendations there of what they want. Article 36 and 37 are citizens petitions.
Right.
So let's just really quickly, for anyone who doesn't know, if I'm a citizen and there's something that I want done, that I want people to vote on, I can create a petition. I go to the clerk's office, take out papers, and I have to have a certain amount of people sign them.
That's right, and in the case of an annual town meeting, it's
Yep.
10 registered voters, and
That's
the
it?
special is 100.
Oh, wow, okay. Okay, so the two,
I think the reason why it's 100 for a special and only 10 for an annual is that they wanted to make it harder for somebody to force a special town meeting.
got it. Well, and that makes sense. Okay, so one is about funding the South Shore Community Action Council for $5,000, which
Right.
they will, I'm sure, get up and speak as to why they want that
Right.
done.
That's correct.
And the second one is the citizens petition to fund the fireworks, which happens at Pembroke, celebrates every year now.
Right.
And that's asking for $7,000. And again, the petitioner will get up and I'm sure make her case as to why she wants that voted on.
Absolutely.
So, and that'll be the town meeting. So it's, again, all this information can be found at the town website.
That's correct. The warrant, is still a little work in progress.
Yeah.
I know.
Couple
that
things.
What you have.
Yeah, I have a little older one.
Right now
Yeah.
is a draft.
Yep,
And we're looking at the finalization of it when the selectmen meet in 2 weeks.
okay, and that'll be that. So go to the town website if you want to find more information about what's on the warrant. You can always call the town hall if you have a question. The town meeting, again, is going to be Tuesday, May 14th, 2019, at 7 o'clock at Pembroke High School. Please, everybody show up. If you don't show up, you can't vote, and you can't complain about what goes on in our town, right?
That's correct.
Right, okay. Thanks very much. This has been Julie Thompson, guest host for Ed Thorne on Pembroke Today.